Well, good morning. It is good to be here with you today. And, I don't know what your story's been this last week or what's going on in your life, but you picked a great day to be here. We are going to spend some time today and over the next several weeks, actually, because we're kicking off a brand new series called What's He Like? And the whole point of this series is to find out, what is Jesus actually like? Not what everybody said about him, not what you might have heard about him, not what you thought about him when you were a kid, but what is he actually like? So this is a great series for you to be a part of. Now, as we get started today, though, I need to ask you a question, and I want you to respond. I want you to raise your hand if this applies to you, okay? Nobody's going to embarrass you or anything like that. How many of you like to go to the movies? Come on. How many of you like to go to the movies? No, be proud. All right, okay, good. I like to go to the movies. My wife loves to go to the movies. I mean, she really loves it. It's kind of this whole experience for her. Like, she will sit through a bad movie if it means she gets to go to the movies. And so she has a whole bag that she brings with her. In it are the free refillable soda cups. The Harkins cups go in the bag. Hand sanitizer goes in the bag. Hand wipes go in the bag. A blanket to curl up in the recliner goes in the bag. And then some snacks that were purchased somewhere other than the movie theater go in the bag. All of this so that we can have this great movie experience. And I tell you all that to say, very simply, I go to a lot more movies than I would if it was just up to me. I wouldn't go to that many movies, but here's what I've noticed. And if you've been, most of you raise your hands. If you've been, you know this is true. There's a bunch of superhero movies. Like, there's always a superhero movie going on. And I was kind of captured by this, and so I went back and did a little checking. Since 2007, Marvel has made 27 superhero movies. That's almost 2 a year, which I thought was a lot. And on top of that, they have another 12 more in development. So there's going to be almost 40 Marvel superhero movies by the time they get done with what they have planned. They've spent $5 billion, with a B, $5 billion making all of these movies. And you want to know what I take from all of that? We love us some superheroes, right? I mean, we like superheroes. And I'm thinking, why do we, like the superhero story so much? And this is my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. I think we like a hero that kind of seems like us, kind of relates to us, maybe has some of the same issues, some of the same problems that we have, but they're able to do something about it, right? They're able to solve the problem. They're able to overcome things. They can help each other. They can help other people, which is great, but they kind of get their own life in order. And there's something about that. It's very attractive to us. We love the idea of the superhero, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The problem comes when we take that idea about superheroes and we kind of translate it over to faith. And it starts to impact what we think about God, what we think about Jesus, what we think about life and how everything works. It's easy to start thinking that, well, it's kind of like the same thing, right? That God or Jesus is kind of a superhero, right? He's kind of like us, but he's smarter and better looking and funny, and he can fix things and he understands what's going on. And we kind of make Jesus into a superhero. There's a book came out about 5 or 10 years ago that I got a chance to read. It wasn't a real popular book, but it was called Imaginary Jesus. And in this book, Imaginary Jesus, what the author does is he meets all these people that have a different version of Jesus. And so let me give you some examples. He meets one guy that his version of Jesus, his imaginary Jesus, he calls him Hippie Jesus. Now, Hippie Jesus, he's still Jesus, but he's vegan and he's very chill, right? So he's just he's calm Jesus. He meets another guy, though, and he has an imaginary Jesus, and it's Angry Jesus. Angry Jesus is Jesus, but he's mad about everything. He's mad about how people are failing. He's mad about the way the world is. He's mad about the way people keep messing up. He's Angry Jesus. He meets another guy, and he's got yet another Jesus, and this is my favorite one. His imaginary Jesus is Bargain Jesus. Bargain Jesus is the Jesus that if I promise to do better and pray for stuff, he'll give me what I ask for if I make a bargain with him, that I'll try harder next time. That's Bargain Jesus. And there's Social Justice Jesus. He's Jesus, but he's mostly concerned that everything is fair and that everybody gets a fair chance. And then there's Political Jesus. Political Jesus, he's Jesus, but he's very concerned that the government works the right way. And the author's point, it's pretty clear. So often, we make Jesus into who we want him to be. Because in every one of those cases, it was amazing how the imaginary Jesus had the exact same opinions, the exact same worldview, saw everything the way the person that imagined him saw the world. In other words, Jesus always agrees with me. That was the approach. And that's dangerous. Because when we turn Jesus into this imaginary thing, or my favorite, I have a kind of superhero Jesus too, my imaginary Jesus hero. I'm gonna put him up here so you can see him. This is my imaginary Jesus. Now, he's made out of wood, and I like woodworking, so that's part of it. But he's got the thumbs up and the half wink, and he's kind of telling you, hey, bro, whatever you like, whatever you want to do, I'm with you, right? I mean, that's the Jesus we want, isn't it? One that just agrees with us, tell us that we're doing great, pats us on the head, available for magic and superhero stuff if we need him. So many times, that's what we turn Jesus into. He's a hero. He's imaginary. He's something else. And then you combine that with the fact that everybody has an opinion about who Jesus is. Everybody does. The people that are desperate and depressed and frustrated, they have an opinion about who Jesus is. The people that are doing well and crushing goals and accomplishing a lot of things, they have an opinion about who Jesus is. The people that are cynical and bitter have an opinion about who Jesus is. And the people, maybe this is you, the people that quietly wonder, does God resent me because I messed up again? They have an opinion about who Jesus is. But here's the great thing. You don't have to go by opinions. You don't have to go by made up imaginary Jesuses. You don't have to kind of take it for what everybody else says. Jesus actually shows us who he is. He tells us who he is. And one of the things that to me is so amazing about what happens when Jesus tells us who he is people respond in one of two ways. They either get really excited and they love what they find, or they get threatened. One of the two. It's almost always the same response. When people get to know the real Jesus, not the opinion Jesus, not the imaginary Jesus, but the real Jesus, people either really like him or they feel really threatened. One of the two. It happens over and over and over again. And here's what I've seen, just kind of trying to watch this as a pastor and watch this as somebody that's known Jesus for a while. It seems like when people get to know him, it gets you to go with him. Getting to know him, when you get to know who Jesus is, for most people the response is, well, now I want to go with him. Because I had all these ideas about what he was like. From the things that happened to me, from the times I got in trouble, from the times I made mistakes. I had all these ideas about what Jesus was like. But now that I've gotten to know him, now that I've realized he's different, I actually want to go with him. I want to be with him. I like this Jesus, the real Jesus, not the imaginary made up one, the real one. I like him. I like being with him. And so we can settle all the questions about the opinions. We can settle all the questions about what everybody else says. But here's probably the hardest one. And all through this series, here's what's going to be the biggest challenge for you. It's not what everybody else says. It's not even what the Bible says. And it's not about what you've heard. It's what you've constructed up here, right? Because for almost all of us, what we think about when we hear the name Jesus, when we think about knowing who he is, it comes with a list of assumptions. And to the extent that those check out with who he is, we're fine. But the problems really come when we've got assumptions and opinions and ideas about who Jesus is that he's not, that he never said, that he doesn't act that way, the way that we think he does. He's not out to punish. He's not angry. He's not all the things we just said. Who is he for real? Unlearning what we think about Jesus may be our biggest hurdle. But the good news is, as I said, he tells us. And so just as an aside, a lot of what we're going to be talking about over the next several weeks, if you're a reader, if you like reading books, it comes from a book written by Dane Ortlund called Gentle and Lowly. So if you're a reader, we put it in the sermon notes in the app and all that stuff. That might be a book you want to check out and read about who Jesus really is. But today we're going to be in Matthew chapter 11. So if you've got a Bible or you want to follow along in the app, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 11. And if you read the whole chapter, we're not going to have time to do the whole chapter this morning, but if you read through it, Jesus does something that I think is really odd. It talks about how Jesus had this crowd around him. And as a matter of fact, if you read about Jesus, one of the things you find is he always had crowds around him. I mean, people were always kind of gathering around to see what he was going to do. What is he going to say? What's going to happen next? And so he had this crowd around him, and he was with his close followers, and he said, in essence, he said, there's a problem. They're not listening. Which, if you were one of those guys that were right there with him, that would have been a very confusing thing to hear. What do you mean they're not listening? Like everywhere you go, there's a group of people. I mean, Jesus, you know that like every time you teach and speak, people from the crowd say they've never heard anything like that. They say it all the time. They've never heard anybody teach the way you teach. And of course, what about all the stuff you do? I mean, you heal people, you forgive sins, you cast out demons, you do all these incredible things, and people are like, I've never seen anyone do that before. How can you do that? And then you tell these stories. You tell these parables. And people walk away, and we can see it. They're scratching their head. They're trying to figure it out. Instead of you just giving them the answer, you gave them something to think about. And you can see the wheels turning. They're trying to understand, well, what does this mean about me? What does this mean about God? What does this mean about life? And then on top of all of that, Jesus, come on. When you give the rich and the powerful and the judgmental people a hard time, I mean, the crowd, they won't do it out loud, but they're kind of clapping and they're cheering and they're like, yeah, stick it to them, right? They're the ones that are making our lives hard. How could you say, Jesus, they're not listening? Why would you say that? Here's what I think, and here's where I think it hits us. Jesus wasn't interested in people admiring him. He wasn't interested in people applauding him. He really wasn't even interested in people being a fan or thinking that he was a good guy or a good example or a great teacher. He really wasn't interested in any of those things, because one of the things Jesus would do at the end of his teaching is he would invite people to follow him. To follow him. And they loved being the fans. They loved admiring him. They loved appreciating him. And in some ways, we're in the exact same spot. When Jesus shows himself to us, many of us, we admire him. We think he's great. We applaud what he's doing. We think he's an amazing teacher, a great example. And Jesus says, but I want you to follow me. There's a big, big difference. He's not looking for fans. He's looking for followers. And the reason he said they're not listening is because he keeps inviting them and inviting us to follow. And people keep choosing to be fans. And here's what I think. Jesus wasn't upset by this. He was disappointed, but he wasn't upset by this. He didn't harangue them. He didn't tell them they were terrible people. He didn't, wonder why they couldn't get it or why they wouldn't follow. He had a different response. When he invited them to follow and they shrugged their shoulders and they said, yeah, we like you, but, changing our lives? I don't know about that. He realized something. They needed to know him. They needed to know who he was. And not just in the celebrity way, not just in the guy that talks to the crowd way, not just the guy that's at church or just, this kind of idea of Jesus of the Bible. You need to know him. They needed to know him. And so Jesus did something so profound. He shared his heart with them. He showed them who he was. Not the celebrity Jesus, not the guy at the head of the crowd Jesus. The individual personal relationship, who he is, what's in his heart, Jesus. Because they weren't listening, and he wanted them so desperately to understand what he was offering them. And that's what he does in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. If you've been around church for any length of time, you've probably heard this. He says it this way. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. And it's just fascinating to me what he does. He understands exactly where these people are living. And I think by extension, exactly where we are living. And did you see who he invited? He didn't invite the powerful and the rich and the wealthy and the people that had it all together. Who did he invite? He invited the weary and the burdened. He invited them to come and get to know him. He said, come and learn the rest of the story about me, and you will find rest for your soul. Come and learn the rest, and you will find rest. And so he invites the people that would see themselves as weary or burdened. And so many times we don't, right? We don't see ourselves that way, right? I mean, somebody sees you, they come to church or you go into work or whatever it is that you do. You go somewhere like, hey, how you doing? And what do you plaster on a fake face, right? And you're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm great, couldn't be better. And you're like, but really, I'm a little tired. I'm a little worn out. I mean, we rarely tell people if somebody says, how you doing? I'm weary, a little burdened today. I mean, we don't say that. But that's who he invites. And even in just saying that, so many of us can identify with that. Weary and burdened? Yeah, I get that. What does it mean to be weary? It means that you've been working hard. You've been working hard. And maybe this is you. Maybe you have been working hard to make life work. You've been working hard to make up for your mistakes. You've been working hard to please people. You've been working hard to please God. You've been working hard to meet your own expectations of who you are and what you should be and what you should have accomplished. And in all of that hard work, it's gotten you to the point where you're just a little tired. Maybe you're a little bit worn down. Maybe you're even burnt out. And Jesus says, if you're weary, if you've been working hard to make life work, I want to invite you in. For some of you, that sounds nice. That sounds like the place you want to be. But he didn't stop there. He didn't stop at the weary. He also invited the burdened. He said, those who are burdened, those who are feeling it. The people that are disappointed. Maybe you're disappointed because your life has not gone the way you expected it to go. Maybe it's not even about you. Maybe you're disappointed because of where your family's at or where your friends at, or you look around, you read the paper and the news, or you jump online and you read the news sites and you're like, man, this can't be right. This isn't good. I'm disappointed. I'm discouraged. I'm depressed about what's going on in the world around me. You're burdened. You're weighed down. And not only are you weighed down, the weight of life is wearing you down. You just feel like you can't get a break. Maybe you're the person that has to be strong for your friends or your family or your situation, and you're just kind of tired of being strong. You're worn down. And while you may not say you're burdened, you would say, or you may not say you're weary, you would say you're burdened. You have been worked over by life. Some people are working hard to make life work, and you have been worked over by life. But either way, when I hear that, when I see that that's who Jesus invites, man, that fits so many people that I know. It fits me. Maybe it fits you. That he invites those who are weary and are burdened. But he's not done yet. He says to take up his yoke, which, I got to be honest, don't carry a yoke around very often, right? So this is my homemade yoke with duct tape and Lowe's buckets, all right? So work with me here. A lot of times, if you hear that word yoke, if you've gone to church or you've listened to people teach from the Bible stuff, what they'll talk about is how they would kind of put this thing over the animals that would pull a plow. But the reality is the people actually wore yokes too. And it's very simple. You've seen it before. You take something that's heavy, you put it on either end of the pole, and it's supposed to help make the weight balance a little bit better, and it's supposed to make the work a little easier to do. And Jesus says, your yoke is heavy. And he's making a comparison. This is a metaphor. He's talking about life. He's talking about life. He said, you're doing life with this heavy thing on your shoulders, on the back of your neck, pushing you down, and then this weight that you're carrying. And you're worn down by it. It's a burden. It's making you tired. You're living life in such a way that you're just trying to take another step. And as you carry all this, the people that you see come alongside you that you'd like to help you, half the time they put more stuff on your back for you to carry. And he makes a very, very important invitation. He says, put it down. He says, take the yoke off that doesn't fit you, that hurts your shoulders and hurts your neck, that makes you feel like life is drudgery and that you're just trying to put one foot in front of the other, that's made you burdened and weary. He says, take that yoke and trade it. Take it off. Let me give you one. Because yes, there are still going to be hard moments in life. There are still things you're going to have to do. But he says, let me give you a yoke. Let me give you a life that fits you. A life you were created to live. A life with the relationships that are centered on me, that are going to make life work better. Let me give you a different yoke, one that fits. I love the way the Message translates this. He says, you can learn the unforced rhythms of grace. He says, take off the yoke you've been carrying and put on mine. You see, Jesus is very, very concerned that they become followers and not stay as fans. And what he's trying to do for them and for us is to invite us to trust him, to know who he is and trust him. And he does something astonishing next. He shows his heart. As a matter of fact, this is the only place in the Bible where Jesus actually tells us what his heart is like. And there's something you need to know about heart. When the Bible says heart, it's not necessarily what we mean. A lot of times when we say heart, like you've probably heard the expression, he or she wears their heart on their sleeve. And what we mean by that is their emotions are always kind of right here on the surface. They don't hide how they feel. They laugh, they cry, whatever it is. Their emotions just come out of them all the time. And so a lot of times when we hear the word heart, that's what we think of, is emotions. And emotions are included in this idea of heart, but it's bigger than that. When Jesus says, I want to show you my heart, what he's in essence saying is, I want you to know what my motivations are. Not just my emotions, but my motivations. Why I do what I do. why I get up in the morning, what it is that drives me. But even beyond that, what is my identity and purpose? Who I see myself as. You see, all of these things encompass heart. And so for me, it's not just the emotions that I share, it's the why. And I just kind of be honest with you sometimes, or vulnerable with you. Sometimes my motivations aren't great, right? I know you would never do this, but every once in a while, I do something not because I want to, because I have to, or because it just looks good, or because it's easier. And I'll do something nice, or I'll try to help somebody out, and I'll be honest with you, the motivation isn't always pure, right? Sometimes it's just easier, it'll just look good, it'll just feel better. It's not because I really want to, I feel like I should, and that's my motivation. And I know none of you would ever do anything like that. But sometimes I do. And Jesus says, I want you to see my motivations. I want you to see my emotions, yes, but I want you to see the core of who I am and what I am about. And he says it in two words that I don't think we would normally put with Jesus. Like if somebody gave you a survey and asked you, what do you, when you hear the name Jesus, when you think about Jesus, what do you think of? What comes to mind? What are the first 2 or 3 words? And you wrote them down. For a lot of us, it may not be the way Jesus described himself. Because again, we have ideas about what he's like and what he's doing. But Jesus described himself with 2 very simple words. He says, my heart, who I am, is gentle and humble. And so many of us think he's angry. And so many of us think that he's disappointed. And so many of us think that he must be not disinterested. He's not even interested in what I'm doing. But the 2 words that Jesus uses to describe his own heart, the motivation, the identity, his emotions, everything about him, the 2 words he uses are gentle and humble. Gentle. Jesus is not harsh. He's not harsh. We don't use the word gentle a lot. So put another word on it. Jesus is not harsh. Jesus is not the guy that fires off angry emails. He's not that guy. He's not the guy that gets on social media and posts so that I can, kind of correct all these fools who think the wrong thing about this other issue. That's not Jesus. His posture is not a pointed finger. His posture is an open arm. Put my arm around you. Come here. I want to hug you. Come here. I love you. Jesus is not harsh. He's not angry. He is not looking to punish someone. He is not disappointed in you. He's gentle. Jesus said, if you want to know what I'm like, put aside all the opinions, put aside what everybody else has said, put aside even your own thoughts, your own guesses. I'm gentle. Next word he uses, he says is humble. And we all kind of know what humble is. We know what it is, but we have a hard time doing it. And then if we say that we're humble, it's like, well, you kind of ruined it. It doesn't really work. But Jesus says he's humble. And I think if you want to put another phrase on that, you can say Jesus is accessible. He's accessible. And you guys aren't like this, but have you ever been talking to somebody and their phone buzzes and it's like you're not even standing there? Right? It's like you're interruption to them all of a sudden. And if you've done this part, this is one I get. I call people on the phone still. I know you're supposed to text and say, hey, can I call you? I just call them, right? And I know, because sometimes they answer the phone and they're annoyed that the phone is ringing, right? It's like, you didn't check to see if you could call me and you called me. And they answer the phone like, hello, they're already mad at you. Jesus is accessible. You never are an interruption to him. Never. He's the guy that puts the phone away, closes the laptop, turns off the TV, and says, here, come sit next to me. He is beautiful and glorious and powerful and bigger than we can imagine. All those things are true. And he's also the most understanding person you will ever meet. He is not harsh. He is accessible. He won't push you away. There are no hoops to jump through. There are no hurdles to get over. You don't have to clean up. You don't have to fix yourself up. You don't have to get it right. He wants to see you now, just the way you are, right now. He's gentle. That's his heart. He's humble. That's how he approaches people. And this is why it's so important that we don't settle for being a fan. And I know some of you aren't baseball fans, but I am, and they finally signed the thing, and we got spring training, and we're gonna have baseball, and I'm very excited about that. And you're gonna boo here in just a second. I'm a Yankees fan, and I love following the Yankees. No boos, that's great. You guys are either asleep or you love the Yankees too. Anyway, I'm a Yankees fan, and so I watch the game, and I follow the players. One of my favorite players is Aaron Judge, and I'm a fan. I wanna see his every at-bat. I wanna see him in the field. I wanna see all that I can about him. And do you know what Aaron Judge does when the game is over? Neither do I. I don't. I have no idea what he does. I'm a fan. Well, I don't know what he's like. I don't know if he's got a dog or a girlfriend. I don't know where he lives. I don't know what kind of food he likes to eat. I don't know what he does in the mornings or when he works out. I mean, I don't know any of that stuff because I'm just a fan. And Jesus is begging us. He's showing us his heart. And he's saying, don't settle for being a fan. I want you to follow me. Because admiring me and appreciating me and being a fan of me, that doesn't bring you life. Following me brings you life. That's where everything changes. And that's why he's not willing to settle for a good reputation or being popular. He wants you. And what he does is he says, I'll show you my heart. If you're hesitant, if you're not sure you can trust me because you've been burned or you don't feel like you know enough, let me show you who I really am. Because I'm not what everybody else says I am. I'm not the image in your head that goes back to when you used to get in trouble and what your parents or what your teacher or what your aunt and uncle or whatever did when they punished you and all that. I'm not that. I'm gentle. I'm humble. And I want you to follow me. And I want you to get to know me. And I want you to find life. That's why Jesus is so adamant about you knowing what he's like. Because he knows something. As soon as you know what he's like, you'll want to go with him. Because you find out, this is the guy that knows me best. This is the guy that's got my best interest at his heart. This is the guy that created me for a purpose. This is the guy who built me to be in relationship with him. Of course, I want to go with him. That's why it's such a tragedy when we settle for being a fan, when he invites us to be a follower. And so there's two big things. Like I said earlier, one of the hard things is to unlearn everything, right? And so here's what you can't do. You can't go with who you think Jesus is. You can't do it. You can't go with who you think Jesus is because, like I said, for so many, we project onto God what has happened to us. And anytime we've had any kind of encounter with an authority, anytime we've had any kind of failure, anytime somebody has criticized us or judged us, so often we take all of that stuff and we project it onto God and we think, God, because everybody else is this way, you must be that way too. And it really sets us up for failure because we have all these wrong ideas about who he is. And give me an example. And you see this all the time. People that are, let's say people that are wealthy, right? And so they've got a lot of money and they keep getting more money and pretty soon they have a whole lot of money. And one of the things that happens, we know this, we see it all the time, is the wealthier you get, the more distance you get from poverty. You tend to hang out with wealthy people, not poor people. You tend to have a lavish lifestyle, not a poor lifestyle. You kind of start to distance yourself. The same way happens with something that's beautiful. Or people that are beautiful. Maybe you guys are fantastic, by the way. Maybe you're the model. Maybe you're the person that's on the cover of the magazines or doing the YouTube videos or whatever. It's like beauty tends to do what? It pulls towards other beauty and it distances itself from things that are ugly, right? We know that. That's the way life works. And so often, we're tempted to think of God the same way. There's Jesus, he's big and he's powerful and he's beautiful and everything about him, and he probably wants to distance himself from me, right? I mean, we know that he'll come to us because he said he would, but in our minds, he's kind of holding his nose, right? He's like, yeah, I'll come because I have to. Not because I want to, but because I have to. And I'm holding back. I'm not going to go any further than I have to. I said I would, so I will. And we kind of see Jesus as being very hesitant and reluctant to come to us. Because that's what we think. That's what we've seen. That's what we've experienced. When in fact, what we need to do is go with who Jesus says he is. Who Jesus says he is. He says he's gentle. He can't ungentle himself to you. He said that he is humble and approachable. Let me break that down. He's never going to get tired of you. No matter how many times you mess up and you come back, he's never going to shake his head. He's never gonna step away. He's never gonna pull back from you. He's never gonna do just the minimum because he's had it. That's not who he is. That's not his heart. That's how we are. It's not how he is. He will never step away. He will never step back. He will never pull back. You can't surprise him. You can't embarrass him. You can't make him ashamed of you. You simply cannot do it. And you're like, oh, but I got a list and you don't know. And Jesus says, and I'm gentle and I'm humble. That's who I am. And that's why I want you to follow me. And he invites you in to this relationship. Again, I know I've said it 100 times, but it's so easy to settle for being a fan. It's so easy to settle for thinking Jesus was a good guy and a nice teacher. And man, if everybody acted like him, we'd have a better world. And you know what? All those things are true, and that's not what he's asking you. He's asking you to trust him and follow him. See, this is why we need the Bible. This is why we need the Bible to help us understand what he's really like. Because as I said, we'll bring our own ideas. We'll bring everybody else's opinion. We'll bring the experiences that we've had. And Jesus stands in front of you right now. And he says, I got a spot for you. I want you to come in. I want you to sit down. And I want to have a relationship with you. And you can yeah, but all you want until you finally get to the end of your yeah, buts. And he says, okay, let's start now. There's nobody more approachable. There's nobody more gentle. There's nobody that wants a relationship with you more than he does. Let's pray together.